Murdered during Mass, an elderly priest is butchered in his church by Islamic State terrorists. Father Jacques Hamel was attacked by two men wielding knives in the latest atrocity to stun France. The two suspects are shot dead, but there are crucial questions tonight for the authorities.
Also tonight, Syria's city of despair, the humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in Aleppo.
An important breakthrough tonight for the parents whose baby son died of sepsis.
And tumbling to glory, the British gymnast aiming for gold in Rio.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mark Austin and Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. It is an attack shocking in its mindlessness and its barbarity. In the sanctity and supposed sanctuary of his own church in northern France, a Catholic priest murdered while conducting Mass. Father Jacques Hamel was 85 years old. His two attackers shouted Islamist slogans and took nuns and parishioners hostage. It ended with police shooting the two men dead.
Within hours of the atrocity in Saint-Étienne-du-Rouvray, the so-called Islamic State was boasting about it. President Hollande vowed the group, which has declared war upon us, would be fought by all means possible. It's emerged one of the attackers was already on a terror watch list. From Normandy, Juliette Bremner sent this report.
The terror that seems to be stalking France returned today, when men armed with knives attacked the most sacred and vulnerable of targets, a Catholic church in the middle of morning Mass.
Au commencement était le Verbe.
But they were unable to save Father Jacques Hamel, who was in his 80s. A witness said he was forced to kneel before being murdered. The priest was taken hostage with two nuns and two parishioners. Their entire ordeal was filmed. One of the nuns was also seriously injured during the attack, but a third managed to escape and raise the alarm. The French president rushed from Paris, perhaps sensing the need to reassure a badly shaken nation. He said it was again the work of terrorists.
Nous sommes face à un groupe Daesh qui nous a déclaré la guerre.
We are faced with a group Daesh that has declared war on us, President Hollande said. We've got to fight this war in any way we can while respecting the law. There appears to have been little or no negotiation with the knife men, who the Interior Ministry said had been neutralised as they left the church. It's understood that a police officer recognised one of the attackers. He identified him as a local man who tried to travel to Syria last year. He was arrested and jailed, but later allowed to return to live with his family, providing he wore an electronic tag. Friends of the victim couldn't believe an elderly man of the church had been killed in this way.
It's very, very sad for the community, for the people here in Saint-Étienne-du-Rouvray. And also it's a strong symbol. The priest saying Mass, it's very, 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 very strong as a symbol.
According to the French media, this church was on a hit list of terrorist targets found on a suspect arrested in Paris last year. A man was arrested this afternoon, and the group calling itself Islamic State claimed that this attack had been carried out by two of its soldiers. Another example of the fear and carnage that can be caused by weapons like knives, so easily accessible in every home.
You can just see the tip of the spire behind me. The roads are still blocked, but we now know more about what happened in that church. The nun who escaped said that the men performed an Arabic sermon in front of the altar. Despite these horrifying details, people here appear not to be panicking. They're very sad that a man they've known for decades has been killed, but they say it could have been any church, any community.
All right, Juliette, thank you very much indeed.
Pope Francis issued a statement speaking of his sorrow and horror at the barbaric murder. It is the latest in the recent surge of Islamist attacks in mainland Western Europe, which are seemingly not so much directed by IS as inspired by it. Our international affairs editor Raghi Omar now on Europe's intensifying terrorist threat.
Today's attack in Rouen is a new and sinister milestone. ISIS has murdered Christians in their killings in the Middle East, but now, for the first time, they've targeted Christian figures here in Europe. It led to an immediate sense of shock and horror in the Vatican.
It's particularly bad that this happened in a church, a sacred place where God's love is proclaimed, and that the victim was a priest, an elderly priest.
And there was swift political reaction across Europe too.
They are trying to destroy our way of life. They are trying to destroy our values. We have shared values, and those values will win through, and the terrorists will not win.
In less than a fortnight, Europe has been left reeling from 3 major terrorist attacks linked to IS, starting with this, the murder of nearly 90 people crushed in the wake of a 19-ton lorry. Then came the suicide bomber at a German pop concert, where luckily no one died because the attacker had been prevented from entering the venue. And now the hostage-taking at the church in France. But today's attack differs from the others in one crucial respect.
If Nice attack was about killing as many civilians as possible to create a sense of terror among the civilian community, the Normandy attack is trying to say that we are here to fight Christians. And that's why it is dangerous escalation.
Today it emerged that a propaganda magazine linked to IS called for attacks across Europe on synagogues, churches and other public buildings. But the attacks of the past 2 weeks have been carried out by individuals inspired by, but not directly guided by the group, often using nothing more than knives and lorries, plots that are almost impossible to detect and stop. Ragioma, ITV News.
Well, our security editor, Rohit Kashru, is with me now. And Rohit, just another dreadful attack. Where does this leave the battle against so-called Islamic State?
Well, what this and 13 deadly days across Europe have shown is that this is the sort of attack to be feared the most. Not commissioned by IS, but encouraged by it before the event, adopted by it after the event. They had to do little. Disturbed people responded to their calls for action. I've travelled across Europe over the last fortnight, and there's a common thread. Often low-level criminals with mental illnesses. But this case is quite different. Here was somebody, one of the suspects, who was right on the radar, and questions will be asked of the French authorities. This isn't new to them. This isn't a new normality as it is in Germany. It's an old reality. It's 18 months since the Charlie Hebdo attacks, and they've had a long time to try to confront these problems. It seems that they and no country in Europe has yet to find a solution.
Indeed. Rohit, thank you very much.
In Syria, the civil war that has given birth to so much violence and suffering has left the city of Aleppo on the very brink of humanitarian catastrophe. The United Nations today called for an immediate 48-hour ceasefire to allow life-saving supplies to reach more than 250,000 people.
ITV News has obtained exclusive footage filmed inside the rebel-held eastern part of Aleppo, which has been all but destroyed during a relentless siege by government forces. As Dan Rivers reports, the images, some of them distressing, show how the once thriving hub of Syria's biggest city has been reduced to total ruin.
It used to be Syria's most populous city, but today it is its most desperate. Aleppo is now a vast monument to the futility of Syria's civil war. This footage, released by the Syrian army, purports to show President Assad's soldiers advancing through the city today. We don't know when it was shot, but residents inside Aleppo say the only road out is now cut off. Since the siege began, ITV News has been receiving an insight into the deteriorating conditions in Aleppo from English teacher Abdul Kafi Al-Hamdo.
Al-Assad forces and Russian airplanes are trying to control this road to besiege Aleppo. And all the world is silent toward these things, these crimes.
Day by day, his dispatches paint an ever bleaker picture.
More 10 people were killed and they are taken to hospital. Tens were injured. More than 5 families until now, they are under the rubble. So this is a genocide. We want to say to all the world, this is a kind of genocide.
And this is the result. Scenes like this repeated every day in Aleppo. This man has just lost his wife, who lies under the blanket before him, his arms outstretched for the body of his baby son, too mutilated to show. And the infants of Syria aren't even safe in hospital. This ward is full of newborns, lives started in the dust of a conflict that this weekend saw 6 of the remaining hospitals in Aleppo hit by airstrikes. Rebels say there are now just 35 doctors left in their half of the city. The UN describes conditions as medieval. Abdul Kafi visits one family stranded in this war zone. Their empty fridge tells the story of growing food shortages. Abdullah says yesterday we had nothing to eat. We only had stale bread. I swear to God, we have nothing. But there are so many other children for whom this war has taken much, much more. Families plunged into grief every day amid the horror of the siege of Aleppo. Dan Rivers, ITV News.
Police in Japan are questioning a man after 19 disabled people were stabbed to death in the country's worst mass killing for decades. The victims were attacked during the night at a residential care centre 25 miles west of Tokyo. The suspect is a 26-year-old former employee at the centre.
Now, here, a mother whose baby son died simply because his symptoms were not spotted early enough has won an important victory today. William Mead had sepsis or blood poisoning, and like thousands of other victims, he would have survived had nurses or doctors acted more quickly. It's all about awareness, and today Melissa Mead got the promise of a government-backed campaign to spread the message. Sepsis kills more people in the UK than breast, bowel and prostate cancer combined, as Nazanin Mashiri reports.
It is a campaign led by a mother trying to understand the death of her son. 1-year-old William Mead died after both doctors and nurses failed to diagnose sepsis. Today, his mother, Melissa Mead, met Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt. From now on, NHS staff and the public will be made aware of the dangers of this devastating condition.
There was no information, there was no leaflets, we weren't signposted in the right direction, there was no safety netting about sepsis. And now with the nice guidelines that came out last week and all of the campaign that's going to go out in the literature, everyone, health professionals and public alike, are going to be thinking the same and they'll be acting the same.
If sepsis, which is the body's reaction to an infection, isn't treated quickly, it can rapidly lead to organ failure and death. There are 150,000 cases of sepsis every year. Of those, at least 44,000 people die from the condition.
You're the key people to making a difference.
At Royal United Hospital in Bath, 700 members of staff have been trained in 60 days to spot the key signs of sepsis.
The simple training not only empowered staff to act, and the real message through the training was that you as the frontline staff are the ones that can make a difference to here, so they found that very empowering. But we also empowered them to go on and train others if they felt comfortable with it.
According to new health guidelines, health professionals should consider sepsis in all patients who may have an infection, and GPs should send those with signs of severe sepsis to hospital immediately. Experts say that quick treatment improves the chances of survival by 80%. Information that came too late for William Mead and so many others. Nazanin Mashiri, ITV News.
Still to come on the ITV Evening News, Michelle Obama steals the show at the Democratic Convention in the US.
And from dancing at a Christmas party as a 6-year-old to going for gold at Rio, we meet British gymnast Claudia Fragapane. Those stories and more right after the break.
And welcome back. Michelle Obama's speech took the Democratic Party convention in Philadelphia by storm. Delegates cheered as she denounced the politics of hate and called on them to give every last ounce of their strength to elect Hillary Clinton.
Yes, it was an impassioned appeal for unity to a party that was at times deeply divided in the run-up to the convention. Our correspondent Robert Moore reports from Philadelphia.
Many people have tried to take down Donald Trump and failed. Last night it was a turn of the immensely popular First Lady. Without once mentioning his name, Michelle implored Americans to rise above the insults.
When someone is cruel or acts like a bully, you don't stoop to their level. No, our motto is when they go low, we go high.
She said her own experience is daily testimony to the fact that America is not failing.
Today, I wake up every morning in a house that was built by slaves. And I watch my daughters, two beautiful, intelligent black young women, playing with their dogs on the White House lawn.
And then she gave her wholehearted support to the woman who her husband had once fought and defeated.
And because of Hillary Clinton, my daughters and all our sons and daughters now take for granted that a woman can be president of the United States.
The Democratic Party is divided. That was on display for much of yesterday.
Thank you.
But Bernie Sanders challenged his supporters, many openly weeping, to back Hillary even as they keep up the pressure for radical change.
Together, my friends, we have begun a political revolution to transform America, and that revolution, our revolution, continues.
And later tonight on this stage and in this arena, it will be the turn of a man who wants to play a pioneering role, Bill Clinton, aiming to be America's first ever First Gentleman. Robert Moore, ITV News, Philadelphia.
Here there has been angry reaction to a decision not to force BT to sell off its broadband division. Instead, BT's been told by its regulator, Ofcom, that it must improve the performance of Openreach, which controls broadband cabling. But campaigners say millions of people will be stuck with a poor service. Well, our business editor, Joel Hills, is here. Tempted to say this is a fudge, Joel, yeah?
Well, look, Mary, we live in a digital age. Access to the internet for all sorts of life's essentials is essential. It's vital. And Ofcom, the regulator's saying in parts of the country, the network isn't up to scratch, and it's pointing the finger at BT. What's Openreach? You must have seen the vans. It's the part of the BT group that owns all the cables and the wires under the ground that takes the internet to homes and businesses and households. Now, while speed and availability and price of broadband is pretty good, Ofcom doesn't believe BT has been investing the money that it should have done. And as a result, only 2% of UK households currently have access to ultra-fast fibre broadband. Look at how we compare to Japan, Spain, the United States and Italy. BT's been squeezing everything it can out of the copper wiring. Ofcom wants it to spend much more making sure it runs fibre cables all the way to our front doors. Now it's forcing BT to create a separate company, independent board, but it's stopping short of forcing it to sell the business, and it's saying the simple option wasn't actually the best one.
My priority is to ensure that consumers, people and businesses up and down the country get the best possible service from their broadband and as quickly as possible. If I had thought that selling off Openreach was the right decision for customers, I would not have hesitated to do so.
What she's saying, Mary, is the big hurdle here was BT's pension deficit. It's so big that separating the company into a separate entity would have been so costly and taken so much time. It simply wasn't worth it. We are promised, though, within months, improved speeds and improved customer service. Watch this space.
Indeed. Jill, thank you.
Let's hope so.
Fingers crossed, eh?
And finally, first it was cycling. Now it seems gymnastics is becoming a sport we're getting rather good at after decades of being among the plucky Olympic also-rans.
Yes, improvements started at Beijing in 2008 and continued, of course, in the London Games. So this year there are high hopes for Britain's Olympic gymnasts, particularly one diminutive but determined competitor who, as Ian Payne reports, is very much ready for Rio.
They start them young in gymnastics. Here's Claudia Fragapani, aged 6, in a Christmas concert. Her talent and charm was already obvious back then. She's 18 now, and her routines have become a lot more strenuous.
When I was about 5.5, 6, I went to a Kingswood local gym club, and then they thought I had potential, so they sent me to Bristol Hawks. And straight away, my coach, Helen Potter, took me in, and I was doing my tumbling and all my flips and stuff.
She was recommended by one of our satellite clubs to come to us, and we knew she was special straight away because she's always had that bubbly personality that you see when she does her floor routines and everything now. So that was there right then.
Fragapane came to national attention at the 2014 Commonwealth Games in Glasgow when she became the first woman to win 4 gold medals. Her father came here from Italy when he was just 4. Her family are very much part of the Bristol community. They're regular churchgoers, and she admits she has a little prayer before competition. And after all her success, she's quite a local celebrity.
Do you get recognised around here in Bristol now?
A little bit.
What's that like?
Yeah, it's nice, but you know, if you look a little bit like a scruff, it's not so nice.
British gymnastics has never had it so good. At the London Games, the team won 4 medals, including Louise Smith's silver and a bronze for Fragapane's idol, Beth Tweddle. So how does she think the team will fare in Rio?
I think we have potential to get a team medal. I feel like British gymnastics is getting stronger and stronger, and if we do all our work right, what we do in training, we all work so hard and we go out there and compete, fingers crossed we could get a medal out of that. And then individually I would love to go all around and just get the best score that I can.
Fragapane has an infectious charm essential to winning over the judges, and even though she's just over 4.5 feet tall, she packs quite a punch. Ian Payne, ITV News, Bristol.
Go, Claudia. Heard it here first. That's all for now. Tom's here with news at 10.
But from all of us on the evening news team, have a great night.
Bye-bye.